Well, it's 3 days into it. It's proving to be a very good year. Seeing that now we're going to talk about a project that I've dedicated 4 years of my life towards.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting to see, because firstly, it's the first book in a 4-part series of your travels around the world, which focuses on the Americas, South America, North America, and including Canada. Looking at the style that you wrote it in, the anecdotes, the flashbacks that you allude to, why the decision to, have that style of writing in this offering?
Look, I come from a very small village, and if you come from a village the size of my village, people don't expect you to, achieve certain things that I've been able to achieve. So when I started traveling the world, people said to me, why don't you put all your experiences into a book? So that was motivated by that. And also in combination with the students that I teach at Tshwane University of Technology, when they see you standing in front of them, they think you didn't go through challenges. And I've been through a lot. I mean, you've read the book.
Yeah.
So that kind of like motivated me to, finally decide to, now, because I'm an academic, I made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to write it in an academic style.
Okay.
So I wanted to be an easy read for people inside or outside of academia.
Yeah, it was definitely a relatable read. It was about you, the person, not the academic, but you are an academic as well. And obviously graduated with your PhD from the University of Cape Town. And I want to look at your studies, being a sociolinguist amongst other many titles that you've garnered over the years. Why the decision to enter that realm? Who were your biggest influences? What narratives and constructs were you trying to rewrite in your own healing process?
Look, perhaps let's start there. I'm currently a PhD student at UCT. I have a doctorate from Tshwane University of Technology. It's what happened in August of 1995 that changed everything for me. I mean, I was involved in a near-fatal car accident. So whilst I was sitting here in Johannesburg at what was then J.G. Strydom Hospital, the idea to tell my story through writing was conceived. Since then, I never looked back. I never looked back. I was always going to write, because my first book is actually a novel written in Setswana. So I decided, to prove that, I'm a balanced bilingual, let me enter the English space. That's when I decided to go this route. And
you speak about, obviously, as I alluded to earlier on, about your travels in the Americas. Many people say that passports are also books. So you've now, used different mediums to explore and garner that lived experience. So, I mean, without giving away too much, you speak about your time in Brazil, you speak about your time in North America and even Canada. I mean, what are some of those, fun facts that people are going to garner through your experience as they pick up the book?
Well, not to give away too much, my wife and I were stuck in Washington, D.C. for about 4 days. She kept on saying, the book, this is good for your book. Because at the time, I was so frustrated. At one point, she said to me, we should spend time at the airport. I said, no ways. It was, we couldn't land in Washington, D.C. from New Jersey. So we missed our flight to Johannesburg. So we were like frustrated for 3 days. Luckily we had money, in the form of credit cards. So that's one of the things that, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm a patient person, because you are not thrown into such a deep end and you do not come out alive. Otherwise, the other challenges, I mentioned my experience in Indianapolis, where, I was asked to get to the back of the line, people will get all the details about what I went through in Indiana.
You see, I don't want to give away too much. This is where people actually have to pick up the book. I actually want to go to page 32. In one of your flashbacks, you speak about the physical disability. How you come to redefine it as an ability, being differently abled as well. Some of the interesting experiences that also come with having to navigate that. I mean, what was the biggest lesson that you learned through those experiences, and how did you rewrite the narrative for yourself in that regard?
Pity. When you carry a disability, people pity you. People will say shame. People would ask me, is it so? Because I limped for 16 years. So I learned to live with my disability. I said, look, the fact that I was involved in a car accident and I broke my hip does not mean that affected my brain. So I could still think, I could still express my ideas. So I had to live through that experience of, physical disability. Because not all, in my case, my physical disability is something I wasn't born with. So I have to live with this new Thabo Ditsele. Yes, so I learned a lot from it.
I'm looking at how COVID-19's also impacted all of us. I mean, it's unprecedented times and we're all navigating this new normal. So with this offering completed, I was fortunate enough to get the book just a little bit before it went into print, for mass consumption.
Yes.
How did the COVID-19 pandemic perhaps give you the space, the time, the opportunity to further reflect on your journey to date? What has emerged on that front? How is that also going to influence the rest of the volumes?
I would say in terms of COVID, I was in Italy when I heard that the first case of COVID was reported in South Africa. And when I arrived, nobody wanted to touch me. That's how, that's the stigma I saw.
Absolutely.
I went to hospital and everybody said, he was in Italy. He was in Italy. I was put in one room. That's when I realized how serious this disease was. And that was, this pandemic was. That was around the 6th, the 7th of March this year. So that was at the early stages of COVID in South Africa. And, again, to your question, COVID also taught me and the rest of the people about discipline, the discipline of spending time at home. My wife and I, in a 20-year marriage, we've never been together this long, this long. Weeks, months on end, we were together.
Dr. Ditsele, I'm sure you and many others married couples are experiencing that. But, I'm going back to the book and highlighting some of the themes that you've alluded to. You spoke about your triumph, rewriting the narratives regarding pity, how you were able to form and define what courage means for you as well. The acceptance of things as they are, and then obviously navigating how you're going to proceed from there on too. But, again, without giving away too much from the book, what do you want to evoke through this book as people pick it up? How will they forever be changed through your work?
International travel.
Yeah.
In the early, the first pages of the book, I was very clear that the book is for a certain target market. Yeah. It's for people who really are interested in traveling.
Yeah.
Especially middle class people, each time when we have money, we throw parties. Not that there's anything wrong with parties, but through this book, people will see a lifestyle option because I give out tips on how I have done it. I'm not for a second suggesting that is the only formula, is the formula that I use, the formula that has worked for me. And if it has worked for me, it's a tested methodology, it might work for you. Because some people think you just wake up and decide, next week we're going to Brazil. It takes months and months and months of planning until you eventually arrive in Sao Paulo.
And then there's also the love of people that you have, and also imparting your lived experience, because you then also become a cultural custodian.
Yes.
And you get to impart your experience from your village in Rustenburg, from South Africa into the rest of the world. So what are your biggest learnings about people traveling overseas? It's not a language barrier thing, because you learn to communicate on different means. So how has that transformed you as well?
Look, it's about being ambassador for the country. Because you meet people, they would ask you about your country, about your president. I've had people who ask me, what's wrong with you? I have to defend all 59 million of us to say, no, there's nothing wrong with us. It teaches you to learn about how people perceive us as a country. Back home, it also teaches you how to educate other people about their stereotypes. You hear so many stereotypes about Americans, and you ask someone, have you interacted with any American? No, I have not. So how come you have such a strong opinion about Americans if you've never interacted with them? So that gives me an opportunity to say to people, this is what Paris is all about. This is what the UK is about. So it's a two-way street where I educate foreigners about us, and I educate people in South Africa about foreigners.
Now, Professor, I mean, we're going to have to leave the conversation there, but when you just look at how you say you tackle stereotypes, you redefine narratives and constructs surrounding, what we have towards the outside world and also what people have towards us.
Yes.
I just want to know from you in terms of your next volume. I mean, because it was such a good read. It was not too long as well. Yes. So when is the next volume coming out, and how else can people access this volume at this point?
Perhaps let's start with the second one. This is a self-published book.
Yeah.
So people should go to www.thaboditsele.com, and all the information is there about how to access it.
Yeah.
And then to the second part of your question, the next volume, I am in the middle, I'm 60% into my second doctorate. Yeah. So as soon as I've handed in my PhD thesis, then volume 2 on Africa will be out. God willing, it's going to be sometime this year, if not this year, in early 2022. Because for now, my priority is completing that which I've started with, which is my PhD.